Alright guys, for this very first video of the school year, we're going to go over basic factoring. Okay, and eventually we're going to transition from factoring to also solving. The main thing right here, you can see I have this typed out right here in red, I'm circling right now. Whenever you want to simplify or factor, you always want to look for a greatest common factor first. Alright, and this should be review for you guys. On this video, what we're going to do is I'm going to start with number 3 first, just because I want to piggyback on this idea of picking out a greatest common factor. So if I look at number 3, if I want to simplify that or factor the expression, I look at the two terms. Let's try to zero in here. I have 8a squared, I have negative 16a. The biggest number that goes into them, or I'll even write this out, the greatest common factor for these would be 8a. So then, just to review, the 8a I put on the outside, then I put my parentheses. Since this here is a minus, it means it's going to be a minus right here. All right, remember, let's see here, 8a, how many times does that go into 8a squared? Well, I just need 1a right here. So this is a, and then I ask myself, all right, 8a times what number is going to give me this 16a? Well, 8 times 2 is 16. So there we get a minus 2. And then from here, we know that we're done. This is a linear factor, meaning that this a is written to the first power. So we're done. I can't factor that any further. So that's your answer right there. So that was one that really went over the whole concept of looking for a GCF first. Okay, I'm going to go back up to number 1. Now, if we look at number 1, if we look at these three terms, r squared, negative 2r, and negative 48, there is no GCF. Right, I'm not going to have an r in the GCF because there's no r with the 48. So this is where we're going to do a bulk of the factoring. This is factoring quadratic because the highest exponent here is a 2. So we're just going to factor this into two binomials. And again, this should be a review for you guys. Okay, since it's r squared, the first term in each is going to be r. Since this last sign's a negative, that means I'm going to have mixed signs. One's going to be positive, one's going to be a negative. Let's say I put a plus here and a minus here. And let's see here. The factors that work for 48 are 8 and 6. I would have to make the 8 negative and the 6 positive. And then that's my answer right there. Okay, and the quick check, if I added these, positive 6 plus negative 8 gives me this, negative 2. And if I multiply, 6 times negative 8 gives me negative 48. All right, I'm going to move over to number 2. Alright, now number 2, again, if I look at these three terms, the 2x squared, the x, and the negative 15, there is no GCF. So we are factoring quadratic, so I have to factor this into two binomials. So I put the two sets of parentheses. Now, since this is a 2x squared, that means the first term has to be 2x, and the other has to be x. And again, since this is a negative, that means on the inside, I'm going to have a positive or negative. I'm not sure if this is going to be a positive or this is going to be a negative because I have different first terms. So the last number here for each of these two binomials are going to be factors of 15. And the only factors of 15 are, well, 1 and 15 itself and 3 and 5. And the only thing that winds up working is if I put a 5 here and I put a 3 here. And then we have to figure out where we put the minus and the plus, and I believe this works right here, the minus and the plus. Now to check it, I'll put it in a different color. This is how you can check it, you just FOIL it out. If I FOIL this out, 2x times that x is 2x squared. The outer term is 2x times 3, which is positive 6x. The inner term is negative 5 times x, which is negative 5x. And the last term is negative 5 times 3, which is negative 15. You can see I can add these together. 6x minus 5x gives me positive x. So I end up with 2x squared plus x minus 15, which is exactly what we started with right there. So this is our answer right there. All right, let's see here. Let's just end right there. Main thing, whenever it says factor, always look for a GCF first. And if it doesn't have a GCF, if it has a quadratic, meaning if the highest exponent is 2, factor it into two binomials.